Hello and welcome to a solo pit stop chat. Only me today, but no worries. I thought we'd use this opportunity to go through a couple of driver tips for when you get back on track. So with that said, let's get into it. Now for me, the driver is the most underrated component of a Greenpower car. I know teams that will spend hours meticulously designing and making a new aerodynamic aid that will make their car go 1 second quicker. Put two different drivers in the car and find that there's 5 seconds of difference between the two drivers. And I know some people might just go, it's the weight difference. But that's not what I've seen. When I was competing, we would have heavier drivers doing much better lap times than those who were lighter. And from my experience, that's all because of their understanding of racecraft and the vehicle that they were driving. If you are really serious about wanting to improve your driver skills and your performance as a driver, the first thing you need to gain an understanding for is
racing lines.
No, it's not that actually. The first thing you need to gain an understanding for is the car itself, the thing you're driving, because without that understanding, you cannot hope to build upon that knowledge. It sounds obvious, but without having an understanding of your steering lock, which is how tight your car can turn, or how effective your brakes are, how could you hope to begin to even tackle something like racing lines? So first off, take note of the vehicle. Every new driver should be given a complete rundown of the car, from where the isolator switch is, to the brakes, to the steering, and even the drivetrain. And there is an additional reason for why this is very important. If your car stops out on circuit and you have some form of mechanical failure, your driver is going to be the first person who's going to have an understanding of what happened, so that when you get back to the paddock, you can immediately start to make changes to the car. For example, the driver might instantly tell, it was a puncture on the right front. And if you have hands-free communication, you can relay that back to your team and tell them, we need to get a new front right tyre prepared. For those teams who have spare wheels, they might just get a new wheel out, or for those who need a new inner tube. But this saves valuable seconds, especially when you're in a 90-minute endurance race. Additionally, it might be something less obvious. The drivetrain could have came off, or the power could have just failed altogether. And in those situations, the driver could make a really important decision. If they are still traveling at a reasonable speed, they might be able to coast back to the pit lane. And what I mean by coast is drive without power. If a driver has that ability to think about their speed and how far it will be till the pit lane, that could give the team a major advantage, because recovery, as we all know, does take a little while, and there's no guarantee of when your car will return to the paddock. Also, speaking of recovery, you want to make sure your driver knows how to pick up the car, so that when the recovery marshals attend the scene, the driver can instruct the marshals on where the best points are. You don't want your car getting damaged by marshals because they picked up the wrong part of the car. So another important note, that all drivers should at least know how to pick up the car so that they can tell recovery when they attend the scene. So once you're familiar with the controls of the car and all of those little annoying details that can go wrong that you can maybe fix on the fly, then it is time to learn about
Racing lines?
Yes, racing lines.
Yay!
Now I think it's really important not to get too carried away when talking about racing lines. You can find loads of videos that get carried away talking about the karting line, wet weather line, braking point, turning point, apex. You can even start calculating the corner radii, but what's the point? All that matters is how you feel when you're out on the track and using your ability to make the car go as quick as possible. For me, racing lines are something that's very simple, especially in Greenpower. We do not have a lot of acceleration. The motors are not that powerful. So trying to alter a corner so that you can get good acceleration might not be beneficial, because, as I mentioned, the acceleration isn't there. What you want to try and do is maintain your speed as you go through the corner, scrubbing off as little speed as possible. And I don't mean drifting, not that. What I mean is that every car should go round the corner in a smooth curve of a constant radius. You shouldn't have to adjust your steering lock as you go through the corner, and every move you make should be premeditated. To be honest, to help me out and demonstrate what I'm talking about, I think it's time to load up a video game. So I've loaded up the Silverstone National Circuit, the one we used for the 2019 finals to help demonstrate this point. And as you can see, as we go into the second corner, you want to be close but never touching the curbs. And then as you approach the corner, just take one constant radius, and then that sets you up for the long straight. And because you've kept your speed going through the corner, you are faster on the long straight and you don't need to accelerate as much. And to give you maybe a better angle so that you can actually see the input in the steering wheel, we're going to go on board and going through the exact same corner, trying to take the exact same racing line. And you can just see what the driver is doing, trying to maintain that constant radius. Now I just want to do the exact same thing, but for the final section of Silverstone, the really tricky two corners that did catch a couple of people out at the finals. When watching this, I want you to pay particular attention to where the car is being positioned. On entry into the first corner, you want to be all the way over to the right hand side. That allows you to use the biggest radius when going around the corner, meaning you maintain the most speed because you're turning the wheel as little as possible. And you try and do the same for the second corner, but because of the speed you've carried, you can't quite get over. So you just need to keep your position where you are and then find the next biggest radius around that final corner so that you can go onto the straight. If we go back on board, you can see it is all very much smooth driving. There are no adjustments as they go around the corner. It is all controlled and every move they're making is quite calculated. Now granted, during the race, there might be quite a bit of traffic around these corners and you do need to think about that when approaching behind a car. But when you're out on your own, these are the types of lines that you should be trying to achieve. Now I'm not saying those racing lines were perfect, although Tom did do a good job. Each car is going to have its own optimal line around the track, and it's the job of the driver to work out what that is. You need to work on consistency more than anything else, because when you are consistent, that means you are repeatable, and repeatable data can be improved upon. So when you first enter the track, pick a racing line and stick with it for 3 laps or so to build up a bank of data. And then you can start to modify your racing line and actually see if it made an improvement or not. Try and do it one corner at a time so that you're reducing the number of variables. And from there you should then start to build up a picture of what the racing line is for your car. And speaking about your car, it's now time for the most important rule of motorsport. Protect your car. To finish first you must finish. It's a simple saying and it's true. The last thing you want to be doing is wasting time on the back of recovery or in the paddock trying to fix some kind of mechanical fault. When considering your racing line, be aware of the track's surface. If it's really bumpy, maybe try and avoid those bumps, because the less vibrations you put through the car, the less likely something is to vibrate loose. Also, be aware of the curbs. Curbs can be really dangerous to Greenpower cars as they have such a low ground clearance, so please make sure you stay away from the curbs and the edge of the track as well. Grass is not your friend and you will not find any speed by going wide on a corner. You also risk picking up a puncture by running wide or running over curbs, because the tyres that Greenpower cars use have such a high pressure inside of them, it doesn't take much to set them off. So even by adjusting your racing line, you can protect the car. You need to be aware of your surroundings. If you are being overtaken by cars, make sure you stick to your racing line and be predictable. That is very important because it means that the cars behind you have an understanding of where you are going on the track and they can pick the racing line to overtake you rather than you picking the racing line to let them overtake you. Defending in Greenpower is pretty much pointless. The cars that we race are so narrow and the tracks that we race at are so wide. There's no way you're keeping a faster car behind you. Your job as a driver is to think about your total race time. You want to get that car as far as possible in the race in the time limit provided, so wasting time and wasting energy defending a position will not benefit you. In the qualification races, you don't really care about your position on the circuit. You care about the mileage you achieve because that is what allows you to qualify for the finals. And if you do find yourself in a position where you can overtake, you need to make sure you pick your overtaking spots carefully. To help me demonstrate, we're going to jump on board with the 2019 IET F24 Plus champions, Firebird, who are quite used to overtaking at this point. Now we join them on board as they are about to do an overtake. You can see they pull out of the slipstream because it is dangerous to be within 2 seconds of the car in front of you in case an issue happened to that car. Keeps its racing line, as does the car ahead, both of them staying in their straight line. Neither of them are moving across the track in a dangerous fashion. And only when the overtake is done do we go into the corner. So it's very important that you look to complete an overtake before you get to a corner, because that is where cars do go across the track to take the racing line. Back on board for another example now, and you can see that there are now 2 cars in front of Firebird, so they have to be even more careful as to which line they pick. They go to the left-hand side, pulling out of the slipstream, which is very sensible, but they start to notice the car ahead is also drifting to the left. There is no longer any room there, so instead of continuing to pursue that left-hand side, they take the space on the right-hand side, and they're able to overtake both cars safely. Maybe getting a little bit too close to the Renishaw car, but other than that, they all keep a straight racing line, and that was a very sensible and safe overtake. And finally, once again at Silverstone, the final 2 corners, just to show that you can overtake on a corner, but only when there is sufficient space to do so. So you can see 3 cars here hugging the inside line, and Firebird very sensibly giving them plenty of room going around the wider part of the circuit, and no issues were had there. So it is possible to overtake on a corner, but only when the track allows you to do so. And I just want to make sure I reiterate this. It is the responsibility of the car that is overtaking to do so safely. You are the only one who can decide when the overtake actually takes place, as you would never expect the car in front to slow down to allow you to go past. If you are being overtaken, you should never move off of your racing line and be predictable. At the end of the day, you want to make sure your car finishes the race, and having some contact with another competitor is a very silly mistake to make when out on circuit, so please try to avoid it. Now on that Silverstone footage, you may have seen that it was very, very wet on that F24 Plus race, and with the wet weather does come a couple of extra challenges. The first thing is that you must make sure you watch out for puddles. As mentioned previously, Greenpower cars have a low ground clearance, and in some circuits it is possible for the water to be so deep that the car will bottom out and effectively turn into a boat. That will ruin your race, that will take away all of your speed. But also when going around corners, the track will be extra slippery. So make sure that you lift going into the corners rather than taking it at full speed before you are comfortable with the conditions. If at any point you think you are about to enter into a spin, make sure that you let go of the accelerator, and also a little bit counterintuitive, but if you are braking, ease off of the brakes. This will allow the wheels to hopefully regain traction and will stop you from going into a spin. This is also true for the dry as well as the wet. Once you've got the car back under control, you can then start to brake again if you need to, or just rotate the steering so that you can go around the corner. If you do not think you can make any adjustments to the car to stop you from entering into a spin, just make sure that you protect yourself. Keep your arms within the cockpit and brace yourself so that you don't go flying around during the spin. Once you have come to a complete stop, assess yourself to make sure that you are okay, and if able to do so, you may continue onto the track and continue with your race. Make sure that you look for any traffic before re-entering the track, and make sure you do not get in the way of anyone going around the track. If you want to take a bit more time to just assess yourself and make sure you're okay, always feel free to stay where you are and wait for a marshal to come and approach you who will assist you. They are there to help you in any situation, so that is true for anything. If you are out on the circuit and you need assistance immediately, stop at your closest marshal post when able, and they will be able to radio through to control, who will then send assistance out if required. You're never alone out on a racetrack, and the marshals are always there to help protect you and look after you. So, I think that's everything I'm going to say for this video. Hopefully it's given you a couple of tips and some extra things to think about. But let's do a quick overview. Number 1, know your car. You need to know the steering lock and the ability to brake And importantly, you need to understand the car, because if you have any mechanical or electrical failures whilst out on circuit, the driver is the first person who can start assessing what needs to be repaired. And having that knowledge before you get back to the paddocks is really valuable for fixing the car and getting back out in the race. Number 2,
Racing lines!
racing lines. They're not the end all of everything, but when looking to improve racing lines, make sure you start with consistency. If you're not able to put in repeatable lap times, then you haven't fully understood the track just yet, and you cannot hope to begin to improve your racing lines around the track. Take each corner as it comes, and hopefully you'll find something that works. And once you've found something, share it with your team members. This is where having an onboard camera can be beneficial, because it gives you a visual aid to tell your other teammates how to drive the car around the track. Everything you do at a race is a team effort, so make sure you work together and help improve each other's times when it comes to racing lines. And last but not least, protect your car. You want to make sure you make it to the end of the race and avoid being on the back of recovery. It can also hamper you into the next session if you do have a mechanical issue, as you have to spend time fixing the car rather than preparing it for the next session. When it comes to overtaking, be sensible in where you overtake. If there is a tight section of the track, fall behind the car that's in front and just wait. You are quick enough to catch up, so you will be quick enough to overtake them. Sound your horn when approaching a car. This will let the driver in front know that you are there and that you are going to try and go for an overtake. Be very clear as to which direction you are going to try and perform the overtake, so that you do not crisscross around the back of their car, because that will more than likely end in a collision. If you are being overtaken, stick to your racing line. It is the job of the overtaker to do it safely. Be predictable in the movements that you are making, and use your mirrors so that you have a full understanding of what's around you. I hope this has been helpful, and I cannot wait to see everyone at an event putting their new driver skills to the test. But for now, thanks for watching and take care everyone.